All right, back here with this second part of this game breakdown. Yes, this is a part 2, but you don't need to watch the part 1 to watch this one. Basically, the first video, I broke down how the Cardinals offense will attack the Rams defense. Now I'm just doing the other side, how the Rams offense will attack the Cardinals defense. And in this video, I want to talk about everything that happened in the first 2 times these two teams played each other. And so we're going to start off with game 1, talk about what happened there, because, the Rams lost the first game, but played a lot better in game 2, and the offense played a lot better in the second game. So what happened? What were the difference? Well, let's get into it, and let's start off with the first game. So, all right, these are the box score stats for the first game. I like to look at the numbers first before we get into the film, just kind of, see what, statistically happened. Matt Stafford, not like a garbage day, but not great either. I mean, 280 yards on 41 attempts, so it's fine yards per attempt. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was fine. That's not horrible. Running game appeared to have a lot of success with Darrell Henderson with 6.4 yards per carry. And then the receiving game, Van Jefferson was the guy who got the most of their yardage totals in this one. Cooper Kupp with 64 himself. Looking over to who performed the best, this is in terms of Pro Football Focus grades for all of the Rams offensive players who played in this game. This was the grades for the game. Van Jefferson did have the best day in this one. Also some offensive line, very high to the top. Stafford kind of just in the middle of the pack for this team in this one. And you also see the bottom of the list, you had Sony Michel, who only had 7 carries, and Deshaun Jackson, who is now playing with the Las Vegas Raiders. So that's not as concerning. And even Darrell Henderson, who had a big yards per carry day, they said he didn't, wasn't really maybe because of him, might have just been because of the offensive line that we already talked about. Meanwhile, for the defense, interestingly, J.J. Watt at the very top of the list, and obviously the question is J.J. Watt going to be healthy? As of recording this video, it has not been announced if him or DeAndre Hopkins will be playing, and that obviously could change things and could change these game plans, and who knows, maybe the Cardinals already know if he's going to be healthy, but just aren't saying it because they want to keep that under wraps. I don't know. At the bottom of the list, with the guys that got significant playing time, Isaiah Simmons is there, Byron Murphy Jr. is there as kind of the guys who maybe didn't perform as well as you would have liked to see them. So first, let's just start off with what went wrong. What was the failure here? And this play was, it's an interception, which is never good. And it's also kind of one of these Stafford interceptions that we've seen a little bit of, where the way this is going to work is you're going to have Deshaun Jackson, who's running a deep route over the middle. You also have another route, Cooper Kupp, who's going to kind of run, fakes as though he's going sort of over the middle from the left to the right, but then he's going to cut up, and he's going to kind of get a little bit underneath the corner and safety who's in charge of covering deep. Basically, the mindset is the safety who's lined up to the offense's left can only cover one of those 2 guys. You hit the other guy. Right when this play begins, you're going to notice right here that at this point, so who should you hit? You should hit Cooper Kupp. I think this is a clear decision. At the same time, though, it's not obvious, and you can see with a great throw, and if Deshaun Jackson can get there could potentially be a completion, but you do have to get it there in a hurry, and that's just a tough throw that far down the field. I mean, trying to throw this ball, over 50 yards and get it there in a hurry, that's not easy to do. Stafford does kind of let this one hang up for a little bit, and that, to me, kind of goes to show, there were yards for the taking there that they didn't necessarily take, and so that's something that you're going to hope for the Rams, that they're able to take advantage of the third time these two teams play and not make that mistake again. And listen, if we're being honest, we've seen some of that. I mean, we've seen some of that kind of stuff with with Matt Stafford so far this season, especially later on in the year, where he's made some questionable decisions that you would like to see him cut out. And if you can clean that stuff up, you could get some more yards. Something like this is something that they did a lot of in this game, and they had some success with it, where it's a zone coverage play. You can kind of just run a quick zone buster just to gain 7 yards or so. And what I always say about this stuff is it can work, but it's not ideal. You want to get those chunk plays, which, again, there were chunk plays open. I'm not saying they never hit any of them, but, they made too many mistakes on the chunk plays. Also made too many mistakes on stuff like this. Watch how Stafford's going to just throw this one, quickly to the outside, and Cooper Kupp isn't able to make the grab. So little stuff like that, they have to clean up and get better at, and they have over the course of the season, although, again, talked about the Stafford some questionable decision-making so far late in the season. But assuming that doesn't happen, I do think there is reason for optimism, and there was stuff that was available that they weren't able to get the first time these two teams played each other. But for a team that averages 2.7 points per drive on the year, they only had about 2.0, or they had exactly 2.0 in this one. So a disappointing performance. But again, there's stuff to still like here. Like, for example, something like this. I mean, you still saw the running game. As I said, this had success. They were able to run block really well. I mean, watch how it's going to be a rush to the right. And I just want to show the offensive line. Look at how right when this play begins, you do see there is a gap that you can run through right there. That's good. So, I mean, really good blocking by the offensive line. I'm just showing one example. There was a lot of this stuff. So this is what can give you some optimism. And in fact, there might be some good running in both of these games a little bit, although I would probably say advantage goes to LA just because, again, Cardinals have kind of struggled stopping the run all year, and the Rams can run the ball really well. Look, as you see, again, pretty easy to pick up some solid yards right there. That's just run blocking right there. That's just offensive line stuff. And of course, if you do this stuff, it can set up play action, blah, blah, blah. We know how all of that works, but that is something that's still, again, is it possible that that's overrated in football? Yeah. Does it still matter? Absolutely. So that's kind of what I think about that. All right, let's move on to the second game now. So you see, I think the first thing that jumps out at you is a much better stat line from Matthew Stafford. I mean, nearly 10 yards per attempt here, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Again, it's not one of those like, oh my God stat lines, but it's pretty close. I mean, this is a really good stat line by Stafford. Mediocre running game, 4 yards per carry there if you take out Van Jefferson's 1 rush. And Cooper Kupp had a big day. Also, Odell Beckham Jr. had 77 yards in this one. So those were the box score stats. You look over to the Rams offense here. One thing I've noticed about the Rams too is it seems like they don't, play a lot of different offensive players. Not a ton going on here. They pretty much just play their guys. Only 14 guys got snaps in both of these games. Regardless, irrelevant. Let's get back to the main point. You see that Matthew Stafford went from being kind of middle of the road the first time these two teams played to the highest graded player by a pretty good margin. And then it was Cooper Kupp right below, and even Odell Beckham Jr. is high up there. So those are notable. Of course, Odell did not play the first time these two teams played. The one, low grade that I think you could argue, that got decent playing time was like a David Edwards, but even that's not like a horrible grade. Meanwhile, for the Arizona Cardinals, I'm interested in looking at sort of the bottom section there. You see Isaiah Simmons, another bad game. Robert Alford in 35 snaps did not do much good. Marcus Golden, not a lot very good there. So some, not great stuff here. Seems like at the top of the list, the, defense in front seven played pretty well. Byron Murphy played pretty well, but there were still some, some lackluster coverage grades, I think it's fair to say. In fact, only 2 players with a coverage grade over 70 in this game. That was Byron Murphy and then Antonio Hamilton, who had 2 snaps. So let's get into the film here. One of the things that really jumps out at me is Odell. Odell was open a good amount. In fact, he could have gotten more yards than he ended up getting. Like, a play like this, he's not going to get the ball here. Stafford isn't looking his direction, but maybe next time you play them, you look in Odell's direction a little bit more, because watch how you're going to see Odell just gets open immediately. That could have potentially been a touchdown with a great throw. Something like this is another example where this time it's going to be cover 2 man. It seemed like Arizona decided, let's play some more man coverage this time than we played the first time, which again, I'm always intrigued when teams get away from a strategy that worked, because the strategy worked the first time, but they decide to go away from that this time, play a lot more man. And maybe they figured, hey, Robert Woods is gone. We match up better here. The issue is they don't have someone to cover Cooper Kupp or Odell, really. I mean, again, Byron Murphy was very good, but what else did they particularly have? Because watch what happens here. Watch how Odell is really going to beat Robert Alford on this play very quickly. Alford even looks like he could have gotten called for holding there. So stuff like that is what I think that, that's notable, and that's worth bringing up. Is if you try to play man coverage, you might not have the horses to do it. Not to mention, there's stuff like this where the Rams, give them credit, even when they maybe were surprised by what coverage the Cardinals were doing, they still had plenty of ways to beat it. And again, it's not like crazy, like something like this, pretty simple concept, just kind of a, essentially a pick play or rub route or whatever you want to call it. I've circled Odell on this play and watch what happens. As you see, Odell is going to be able to get wide open. He's schemed open on this play, and then he can use his great ability in space to pick up a ton more yards. So for someone like Odell, I do think he made a big difference when these two teams played. And again, if you can take some pressure off of Cooper Kupp, that's just going to do your team a lot of good. So that's something that I find fascinating and something that makes me a little bit, concerned if I'm a Cardinals fan. It would. The fact that, they don't just have one guy, they have several guys. And that can really come into play on something like this, which is a zone coverage play. And this is why you want to have multiple receivers who can make a play. Because this time, Odell was a part of this, but he's not the only part of this. In fact, Van Jefferson's going to be the guy who gets the ball. So it's a pretty simple concept, right? In fact, this is essentially a very similar concept to the one I talked about earlier where Stafford threw it to the wrong guy. That was in the first game. Basically, your read is the safety. If the safety comes in, you throw over the top. The safety stays deep. You throw over the middle and hit Odell Beckham. Watch how when Stafford takes the snap, you're going to notice here that it's not even like obvious, but you definitely see that the safety is not just going back to cover Odell. So because of this, Stafford's going to say, you know what? I have a big enough arm. I'm going to take this chance. It's actually not even that different from that last play. I would say the safety's like a step or two further in, but also Stafford just connects better with guys like Odell and Jefferson and Kupp than he did Deshaun Jackson. So that also plays a role. Watch this just great throw from Stafford. I mean, that's a thing of beauty right there. And you're able to get a big chunk play. So this is basically the Rams hitting on those plays that they missed on the first time. So that's part of it, is they executed their offense better. I think that's a big reason why they had more success, which to me would be optimistic for the Rams fans who are watching this video, because you'll probably execute it at least as well next time, right? Maybe you'll make a mistake or two here and there, but you're probably closer to the second game than the first game because you know you're capable of this stuff. And plus, quite frankly, the second time we saw these teams play, like something like this, quite frankly, there was just an element of the Cardinals didn't play great zone coverage. I mean, this is a route on this play that someone should be able to cover here. However, look, whether you want to blame a linebacker for not staying deep or you want to blame the safety for not coming in, someone should have covered him. Really, I think that's a linebacker's fault. That's how I would say that. And that was number 9, who is Isaiah Simmons, who, their first round pick from a couple years ago, who I would say should have stayed deep like that. So if they're going to make these mistakes, the Rams will capitalize. The Cardinals have to do a better job of closing that stuff up. I think they probably will to some degree. And I think that's probably the game plan, is you got to play zone coverage and just trust that you'll set that stuff up. But it's going to be tough. So, okay, final predictions for this game. So in game 1, the Rams scored 20 points in 10 drives, so 2 points per drive. Game 2, they scored 30 points in just 9 drives. That's 3.3 points per drive, which brings their average this season against the Cardinals to 2.6 points per drive. The Rams average 2.68 points per drive on the year, and Arizona gives up 2.1 points per drive on the year. So pretty big difference there. I'm predicting the Rams offense has success in this one. I'm saying 33 points on 11 drives. That's 3 points per drive. I know that's high, and that's higher than the Rams average throughout the course of the season. But you know what? I like the way that they match up against the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are going to be forced to play coverage they're not as good at. And that's also the coverage that, quite frankly, Sean McVay lives for, is being able to scheme that stuff up. So I do have, according to this, it's a close game, but I have the Rams winning by 2 points over Arizona, which is interesting to me. It just happened to work out that way. Just so you guys know how I do this, is when I cover one half of the game, I simply just guess, okay, how many points per drive do I expect you to get in this game? And then I go to the other side, and usually I forget what number I wrote down. And so when I come back, that's how it works. I have a 2-point game here, and the first one I had a 1-point game. So I'm projecting some close games here. I really think this game might legitimately come down to who makes the mistake, who screws up, who throws the interception. I think one mistake could be the difference in this one. I think this is tight. This is an exciting game, probably the game I'm most excited for outside of watching my own team, the Buccaneers, play this week. So it should be fascinating. But yeah, that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What is your thought on this game? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.